and welcome to the Giraffe Social Media Podcast. It's what social media managers are talking about. I'm Chloe Belchamber, and on today's episode, I'm direct messaging social media marketing teacher and creator Lucas O'Keefe. We'll be discussing sustainable ways to grow on Instagram, plus Lucas will be sharing some of his tips to combat low reach. Welcome to the podcast, Lucas.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Of course. Where are you joining us from today?
So I'm just a little bit outside of Toronto, Canada.
Amazing. We love having global guests on the podcast. I feel like most of our guests now are from outside of the UK, which was great. We love the representation.
That's the great thing about social media, right? Like I never thought I would, be networking and having so many friends and connections all over the world, but it really makes the big world a lot smaller.
Totally. And I mean, we'll be talking about networking later in today's episode, but you're so right. It's great to kind of speak to social media managers from across the world and gain those different perspectives because, every country is different and every kind of audience and platform works differently. So I'm looking forward to hearing your perspectives.
Yeah, same here. Got a lot to share.
So, Lucas, you've been sharing easy tips and tricks on how to grow on social media for a few years now, and you've amassed a following of over 200,000 on Instagram alone. I want to know, where did this all start from you? How did you get into this? What's the story there?
Yeah, so I've been saying this more as part of my backstory, and I think it actually has become a big part of my personal brand. But I'm actually a full-time elementary school teacher here in Canada. So I teach middle school, 13, 14-year-olds approximately. And that's my 9 to 5 that I still do keep to this day. I'm lucky to be on summer vacation right now, but about 2 weeks from the time we're recording this, I'll be right back in the classroom and trying to balance all those different things all at once. But yeah, so I really have always said that my teaching background has been a big part of how I got into content creation and social media in the first place. I think there's so much about, just making, as a teacher, making those lessons and that curriculum as engaging as possible for students, especially, when kids by default don't always want to go to school. My goal is to make it a place where they do want to be, and a place where they just appreciate the lessons they're learning. So I've always kind of had that content creator background, I think, as a teacher, even before I was doing it on social media. So it became a big passion of mine, a big interest of mine that I just slowly started to dabble in. So I tried YouTube. I was looking at even TikTok in 2019, Instagram, all over the place, just kind of consuming and trying out all these different platforms. And then when the pandemic kind of first started and everything went on lockdown, I sat down and I said, well, I have a little bit more time on my hands because schools were closed, right? So I had more time on my hands. I've always wanted to take this social media and content creation thing a little bit further. Now is my chance to do it, and I might not get another chance like it. So really in March 2020, really as soon as everything shut down, I started that Instagram account. I had a TikTok account at the time, and I was really just using them to create content, try things out, see what worked, see what didn't, all while networking. And it was a time when everybody else, I think, was also networking. I know so many businesses and personal brands had to go digital or had to go online. Some were already doing a great job, but many had to figure it out really overnight. So it was a great time for me to just be discovering so many different things. So I got on board with some local businesses where I was based at the time, mostly in the health and massage clinic kind of niche. And I was just helping them with their social media presence while also working on my own. And the whole time just documenting what I was learning and what I was figuring out. And it's become a pretty big thing now.
That's so amazing. I mean, first, I love that you're a teacher. I imagine you were using Canva almost religiously, putting together lesson plans and things. So that's one transferable skill that you've brought over. But yeah, I think it's great that you've kind of started this platform as someone who's not already an expert, so to speak, and you're kind of just sharing your journey and what you've learned and what's worked for you, and in turn kind of offered those tips to people who are kind of in the same position.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what I do stress is try it out, learn as you go through it, and then just turn what you know and what you've learned, right? Something that you know a little bit more than above average about, or even better, if you're consider yourself an expert, teach what you have learned and turn that into content. And it really does make it so much easier for anybody to start from any level, right? Just start and follow that journey of being a learner and figuring it out as you go, and then turn into content. And eventually that's where people start to develop programs, they become coaches, things like that. It's slow in the beginning, but as you kind of do piece it together and really just focus on what you're learning and packaging that into how someone who's now in your previous position is going to learn, that's really where it all comes together.
Totally. And I mean, we're going to kind of run through some of those tips you have to offer in a little bit. But I kind of want to know, you've obviously been sharing these tips on Instagram since around, 2019, before sort of COVID period. How has Instagram as a platform changed for you in that time? And how has it kind of made you, or forced you really, to adapt the way that you're sharing your content? Because there have been lots of big changes over the last few years.
Yeah, so I definitely have to address, I think, the rise of video, and in particular that short form, quick to the point, vertical video that did originate on TikTok, but now we are seeing it everywhere. We have Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and I believe Snapchat even has its own version of it, right? So every platform is realizing that this is how people are consuming content. I'm seeing it even as a content consumer. Whenever I'm doing anything in terms of social media strategy or creating efficient content, I always put myself, I never leave that position of being a content consumer myself. And things really changed for me when I started being proactive and thinking, okay, I'm consuming content. I've been on my couch for 45 minutes just watching videos. What was it about these videos that made me stick around and waste 45 minutes of my time, as opposed to the other ones that I was swiping past or not giving my time to, right? So it really does come down to being proactive and thinking, okay, why did I focus on this content? How can I try to model this style or apply some of the things that I really liked about this post in my own content? So video really has been on that rise. And I am someone who was not comfortable with video when I first started. I still dabble in and out of it for the most part, but it's not my strongest type of content. And I always say that. But I definitely have had to adapt. So it's just been more ways of finding those types of video content that I can make that I'm comfortable with. And I always tell people that there's so many different ways to create content. I know when these platforms, these formats are first introduced, it feels like there's only one way. Like when Instagram Reels kind of got ported over as a format from TikTok, I think everybody thought they had to just do dancing or pointing at things around the screen. And we've all seen those videos. But things do evolve, right? So as people were adapting and trying out their new types of content and experimenting with the format, everybody was catching on at the same time. And I think Instagram finally got that that good database of different unique content and a variety, as opposed to one model or one format. And that really does come from experimenting. So the two things I would say to answer that is just experiment with your content, but then don't be afraid to, or I actually encourage consuming content, being proactive about it, being analytical about it, and thinking, what did I like about this? What can I take from this in terms of the style, not the idea, but what can I take from this and apply to my own content as I experiment and try to learn how to adapt.
Yes, I mean, that's such a good idea, and something that I've almost kind of realized myself doing now as a social media manager who also really consumes content in their spare time is I'll scroll through TikTok or Instagram, particularly Reels, and you're right, I'll swipe past something if it doesn't almost immediately engage me, and I go, nope, your intro was too long, or nope, your hook wasn't good enough. And so I think kind of really processing that and then applying that to your own strategy is so genius. And to do it in your spare time, almost subconsciously is yeah, I love that.
Yeah, all the evidence for what is good content is out there, right? It's all out there. There's billions of videos now across multiple platforms. And usually what works on, so it's funny I like to make the joke that Instagram's copying TikTok or they're all borrowing formats. But if anything, that just makes it easier for us to find all these examples of good content, right? I look on TikTok for inspiration that I might use on Reels and vice versa as well.
Absolutely. And kind of tying into reels and sort of getting stuck in with this content, I think one thing that you do really well online is you're always front and center in everything you post, whether that's, putting yourself in a reel, adding a photo of yourself to your carousels, or you also use like a Bitmoji, which I love. So how important is it to kind of show your face and show up online these days?
Yeah, and again, it's always like a little cheesy cliche line that I like to use, and I've heard a bunch of other people use too. But like, it's called social media, right? It's all about being social and connecting with people, and really the best way to do that is by putting yourself forward and showing who you are. Obviously, brands have a different approach because they are brands. They have that name, but we even see tons of brands will have their social media expert who is in all their videos, right? It's almost like the advocate for the brand, or the spokesperson for the brand. And if you look at how many brands are doing reels and TikTok videos, that's often the case. I like it's like Duolingo, for example. Like, they have like the Duolingo like mascot in like a costume, and their TikTok account is very funny, right? So I think just having that, whether it is like a spokesperson or a personal brand, I think it should be yourself, showing your face online and just giving people the opportunity to recognize you and to be able to put a face to your name is really key. When I first started, I didn't even have my username as Lucas O'Keefe. It was more just like an agency name I was like trying out at the time, when I was just kind of, like I said, like starting out helping like local businesses. But I quickly realized like people were addressing me as Lucas in the comments, or when I went live, or when they were, replying to my stories or anything like that. So I changed it to Lucas O'Keefe, and things have been very different ever since then. And I hear people mentioning, and now it's my name people are talking about. And I can like Google myself and I show up as my name, right? As opposed to like a business that has no association with me. So I do think it's huge. Like you said, there are tons of ways to do it, even on like reels and whatnot, especially as, like I said, someone who hasn't always been comfortable with video. Most of my reels now they're still very information based. So I almost treat them like a quick little PowerPoint video, or PowerPoint slideshow. But even though most of the value of the reel, most of the substance of the reel is just like information, I always open it up with just me like sitting on my couch, like pointing to what the topic's going to be, or saying or speaking and saying the topic. And just that like 2 seconds of me appearing on camera, with the rest of the post having nothing to do with me and just being information. And like you said too, with my carousels, I like to have the front cover be like me pointing to the title, or me just reacting to the title, just like people do with YouTube thumbnails. Have that just visual hook in the beginning, and then the rest can just be whatever you want it to be. It does not have to be like just all about ourselves. But just getting yourself out there in the beginning, I think, is a great hook and a great way to have people remember you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such sound advice, because I think a lot of feedback that we can get from clients or people kind of just starting out in social is that they know video is important, but they're really not comfortable getting in front of the camera. So I think something we do on our TikTok as well is I'll kind of set up the video, and same as you, introduce the topic and then let the Canva designs sort of speak for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it does. It really helps to kind of get to know you, and where you kind of film these intros from the same position in your house. For you, it's your sofa, and for me, it's this office background you see. It helps people kind of place you so that when you show up on the feed, they go, oh, of course, I know this guy. And then they'll be like, oh, it's Lucas. So yeah, I love that.
Yep, the more familiar you can make it, the more people are going to recognize you as soon as they see it on the feed. And as you're building that audience, that's what you want them to do, right?
Totally. And I think sort of whilst we're on the topic of Instagram, we've seen this huge shift. It's almost sort of avoidable not being able to talk about it, but I think in the way that they operate and they prioritize content over the last sort of 18 months. And as social media managers or creators, I think it's really easy to kind of blame the algorithm when our posts don't do as well as we sort of anticipated. But whilst I was having a little stalk on your account, I saw that you posted something really interesting that said the algorithm isn't changing, your audience's attention is, which I think is so brilliant. So what are some of the best ways to better understand your audience and then serve their interests in the content that you're posting?
Yeah, and I'll say it straight up in the beginning, like to start off. I've made like a bunch of jokes, like just fun, like playful jokes on my account of like how I like act bitter about the fact that it feels like Instagram is almost like prioritizing reels and wanting this video content. But there's clear signs for that, right? And like we always got to come back to the point that like Instagram is a massive social media platform, massive company, like so many brilliant people behind it. They know that where the shift is going, so that they're choosing to make this big change. I'm sure they knew there would be some like backlash to it, but they knew that video is really where things are going. So gotta embrace it if we can, right? And that's really where I get at with your audience attention is really shifting in that direction. And I find it like if I go on my Instagram feed, I don't really get like captivated in the sense where like I like that fun relatable experience of like you sit down for 5 minutes, but it's actually been like 30 or 45 or even an hour, right? Like sometimes I come home from work when I'm teaching and I'm just tired and I'll go on the couch and I'll just start like scrolling, and like I can burn an hour or two just doing that, right? When I should be doing way more things. That happens to me only when I'm watching TikTok and to some extent now Reels. Like I said, I find the quality of Reels is getting more engaging. It's getting better. But like with that short form video, it really does hook me in because it is so quick. It's so within our grasp. Like we said, if you don't like what you're seeing, you are just swiping and something new is right there. And every time you are swiping onto past something you don't like, they are learning and they're thinking we're gonna keep showing, we're gonna try to track what they do and don't like and show them that, right? So it really does, like I said, it does come down to embracing the content that is out there, trying all the formats and finding the one that works best for you. But I really can't stress enough, like just be proactive while you're consuming that content. Ask yourself what it is that is captivating you. Ask yourself why you watched that video and why you didn't watch that other video. And usually people can learn and start to form their own style from there.
Totally. And I think with these, recent changes and the apps are always changing, I think it provides us with an opportunity to experiment and try new things, which is what we've kind of touched on, right? So I want to know, do you have, and this is a leading question because I know you do, because I've seen it on your Instagram, but do you have a checklist of sorts that you like to whip out when your reach is lower than usual or, your posts aren't performing for a few weeks? Like, what do you usually turn to then?
Yeah, so rather than like hoping that like this post will do well or it'll get good reach, or like kind of just blame, like I find a lot of people blame like algorithms and whatnot when their post reach is low. I have always said that having like a good engagement routine or engagement strategy is what will do the work for you, right? It's going out there and getting your account that reach, so you don't have to rely on the algorithm. You don't have to wait for the algorithm to do it. So a few things that I prioritize, and I always tell people, like especially when it comes to like the best time to post on Instagram, there are like optimized times, and if you look at your insights, that can give you a good idea, right? And there are tons of analytical tools that will tell you. But first and foremost, what I always tell people is the most important time for you to post is a time of your day when you can dedicate like 30, 45, maybe even an hour of your time to being on your account and doing outgoing engagement or replying to any incoming engagement that's coming through in that moment right when you post, right? We call it posting and ghosting, where people will just put up a post on Instagram and then or just schedule it even and then just never even log in and ignore the app entirely, right? And then all that stuff it's kind of just leaving the app to do it on its own. But there's so much we can do now to actually get out there. I always relate it to like knocking on people's doors in real life and like introducing your business to them, right? Or introducing your content or handing out flyers about your content. There's so much we can actually do. So my favorite way to do it that because a lot of people when they think of an engagement routine, it sounds very like strenuous. Sometimes it sounds like spammy to people. Sometimes people are uncomfortable doing it. I always say start with the easiest, most comfortable way to speak with people or to communicate with people. And on Instagram, that's replying to their stories, in my opinion. I find people post very like casual things in their stories, can be completely unrelated to their like business. It's not all business. It could be just fun, relatable things. Reply to those stories. So right when I post, I go and I'll watch the story feed and I'll scroll through till I can find 5, maybe 10, if it's one of those days that I can easily just reply to or relate to, right? Because then again, if it's a picture of someone's dog, I'm just going to say, oh, it's such a cute dog, right? It's so easy to reply to as opposed to like getting all technical and whatnot. But the reason I like to do this, and we see this all the time, is my favorite experiment on Instagram is you go DM someone, you have a conversation. They're replying to you, you're replying back to them, vice versa. It's two-way conversation. As soon as you close the DMs and then go to your main feed, one of the first posts you see, usually the first, is that person you were just messaging, right? Because the Instagram algorithm is all focused on relations, right? It's assuming, okay, who does Lucas interact with the most in a positive way? We're going to show Lucas that person's content. So if I'm DMing someone, right, we're having a private conversation, that's pretty much as extreme as it gets in terms of engagement or connecting on Instagram. So Instagram, the algorithm is going to go, okay, Lucas was DMing this person. He probably, this is his friend or whatnot. Let's show him this person's content. So by replying to people's stories, you're opening up that possible channel to have that conversation. They might not reply to you. That's okay, right? People might not be checking their stories, might be busy, whatnot. But 9 times out of 10, I find it does lead to a conversation, and then those people are going to see your posts a lot more. So my favorite way to start with engaging after you post is to reply to stories. Then the second biggest thing I do, just to not keep it, like there are other things, but just to keep it very easy for people to apply, the second thing I do is I go look at my second most recent post. So I just posted, I'm going to go look at the post I put up yesterday or 2 days ago, and I'm going to go check the comments there, and I'm going to go find all the people who supported me yesterday, right? Or commented on my post yesterday. Because those people have already shown that they support my content, they support my page or whatnot, or they're just supportive people in general who don't mind giving a bit of their time. And I will go on all their posts, or like I will, as many as I can have time for. I'll tap on their profile and I'll see if they posted anything new. If they did, and I can respond to it, I'll scroll through it, I'll watch it, and I'll just leave a nice short supportive comment. And I find that really just keeps that, again, two-way interaction going, that two-way support where I'm giving the support to their account, they're giving it back. So those are the 2 ways I do it. Conversations via stories, in the DMs that start with stories, and then supporting the people who have already supported you. If you have extra time and you're feeling like it, you can do things like go check hashtags, go check, I like locations as well, and start commenting some accounts. But those are more just like wild cards that could work out, again, if you have time. I always foster and double down on the people who are already there. And I always say with engagement, do it without expectation. Like, don't be commenting on these people or replying to their stories just because you're like, you expect them to reply back. Because that's just a quick way to get demotivated and burnt out from doing it.
Definitely. And I think when you almost think of these interactions as transactional, I like to say, where you're kind of doing it with the pure motive of having that interaction back, it does kind of, it not only sort of burns you out, as you say, but I think it shows through those interactions that you're maybe not being the most genuine. And that's what I hate to see the most, is when you're kind of, when we deal with influencer marketing, you can see it in the comments when we're looking at engagement. It is very just like, almost tit for tat, right? You can tell that these people are just, which is great. We love community where people are sort of supporting each other and helping with that engagement, but it is quite transparent. So I think that your approach with building these genuine connections and almost networking comes across with, and you're getting that quality engagement back really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So is this the same way? Because I was going to lead into kind of network building and how important that is for creators and freelancers and agencies like ourselves. Are you using these same strategies when growing your following as well? Or is that purely like a community management type thing?
I think everybody can benefit from this, right? And I think the cool thing about where social media is now, and again, I really saw this shift when 2020 kind of first became what it was. Whether it's a brand, a personal, whether it's a personal brand, like a corporate brand, an influencer, I find it doesn't matter what we're looking at. I think every place with every type of social media presence has realized they kind of need, whether it's that person or just that presence where they are, building that community and really fostering that community on social media, right? Because I think if we look at the past, maybe even 10 years, it might be going a little bit far, but if we look at the past 5 to 10 years, there was a bit of a stale period where I think social media was very focused on just posting promotional content, advertisement based content, nothing like personal or really fostering a community. And then again, I don't know if it was TikTok doing this, because I think TikTok has really helped, but also just 2020 onwards in general. I think so many brands realized how important it is to just connect with their audience and make social media that place where their audience can go to feel like they're talking directly with the brand or someone who represents the brand, or the brand is showing just like more fun, down to earth or relatable things if that's what their audience wants.
Yeah, you're so right. I definitely would have credited most of that to TikTok. I think you only have to read through the comments on, creators or brands, like you said. Like, that comment section is almost as rich as the content that they're providing. It's almost better, really, to see these people come together and joke around with the social media managers.
And what I love about that happens on TikTok, I don't see this on Instagram, but I love, like, there's so many now examples of like the blue check verified TikTok brands, or like even, like professional sports teams will go comment on people's videos. Or like, I love seeing like full blown brands, like well-known worldwide brands, like commenting on, random people's videos, especially obviously if it relates to them, it's even better. But I think that's what's really cool. When we see those brands doing that, just showing up in like a random person's comments, which is something we never would have expected in the past.
No, absolutely. And even like some of the partnerships that we have seen come out of this, like, I don't know if you've seen that girl who claimed to be like a professional graphic designer, and she kind of just started out with these satirical videos, and then she actually did kind of partner with a lot of these brands. So it's so cool to see this happening online.
She like redesigned all the logos for all these big corporations, right? She's like, here's how I would design it.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. Sometimes, though, I feel like it can feel like nobody new is discovering your account. And I think that this is kind of like a shift that we've seen on Instagram in recent years, where a lot of people, a lot of influencers and creators have kind of felt this way, that they haven't really seen much growth. So I want to know if you have any ways that, alternative ways that you like to engage your audience, or ways that you like to engage audiences outside of your existing sort of circle.
Yeah, I love that question, because I find, again, it really comes down to the, like, don't just wait for Instagram to kind of give you that reach, right? Don't expect the algorithm to kind of just do it. There are two ways that do kind of involve us putting a lot of the ownership on our own reach and our own growth. And they're two of my favorites. And based on the priorities and the features I'm seeing Instagram add, I can tell they're, right, I would very confidently assume they are two big priorities of Instagram. Those are Instagram Lives and collaborations. And Instagram Lives, first and foremost, I will actually say are my favorite content to use on Instagram. I go in and out of periods of like not feeling too motivated to do them, and I won't. But since I've been on summer, I've had more time, especially during the day. I've been doing 1 or 2 Instagram Lives a week, almost always with another guest or with someone. Whether I'm the guest, I'm being interviewed, or and vice versa. But that has actually been the most consistently reliable way I have been growing this summer. It always is more difficult, I find, in the summer when to grow. People aren't on their phone as much. We're also going through, like we said, feels like a period of change on Instagram, which doesn't help either. But Instagram Lives, whether it's been me just going live, like I said, having a guest on, and I'm therefore being exposed to that guest's audience, or vice versa, me being a guest, and then the host, their audience is seeing me. That has been my favorite way to really network. And it's cool when you go live, you can even see like in the live session where the comments are, so-and-so followed you, so-and-so followed you, right? Like you see people following you as you go. And not even making it about following. They are my favorite content format to just build trust. I think when people, just like how we're speaking right now, when people hear you say something live, like something you can't rehearse, something you're just kind of saying in the moment or in a conversation, I think it goes a long way to really build that trust, because people can sense, if they like your style of communication, they can sense if it sounds like you know what you're talking about. Whereas, on like a rehearsed video or even like a graphic design post, which is just text, I can rehearse that, or I can rewrite that, or even have someone else do it for me, and nobody will fully know, right? So if it's authentically me. But when we're live, when we're having a conversation, you really do put out what you offer. And I think that's what is really important about going live. in addition to the extended reach opportunities, you can also go live with up to 4 people now. So I think that's huge, right? Like,
Yes.
that's a lot of people on a live. That's a lot of audience members possibly tuning in. So even if people are small creators and they're listening saying like, well, if I go live, only like 2 people will tune in, which is what happened when I first started, right? Go live with 3 other people who are also around the same size. And that's potentially like, even if you have like 20 people from all your audiences combined, that's still people who are tuning in and listening, and you grow from there. In terms of collaborations, Instagram recently added that collaboration tag. So what's cool about that is when like I've been doing collaboration since I started on Instagram, but it used to be a lot less formal. It was like a friend of me, like myself and a friend, we're going to pick a topic. Okay, let's do top 10, whatever, Instagram tips. I'll do the first 5, you do the second 5. And then we tell people at the end of our post, go check so-and-so's feed for the second part, right? And it was very like scrappy like that. And it worked. It really worked. Same thing, I would do like guest posts on other creators' accounts. But now, so again, Instagram, I think, is prioritizing it. We now have like a full out collaboration feature. So I can collaborate with someone, approve them as a collaborator, and all of a sudden it says both our names on the feed, right? It'll say like, you know, Lucas 1 and Lucas 2. We both posted. And it even shows up on both of our feeds. So I actually did a collaboration reel yesterday, and we posted it. It was with a friend of mine who I hadn't met in person, but I was on vacation about 6 hours away from where I live, where she happened to live too. So we took the opportunity to film a collaboration reel. We posted it to both of our feeds. It says both our names. And I'm seeing so many comments from, you know, people I've never met before or never seen on my account or weren't yet following me. And she's seeing the same as well, right? We get that audience overlap because it's showing up on both our feeds. So that's a huge way to grow too. And that's a cool one where, again, doesn't matter how large your audience is. The 2 people can collaborate on a post and reach double the audience.
Yeah, 100%. I always find whenever I see those collaborative posts showing up on my feed, I'm always, just out of pure curiosity and nosiness, checking out the person that they're collaborating with. And it is such a good way to kind of, expand that audience and meet new people. So definitely, we're going to be live streaming our next podcast episode for sure, and seeing how it goes. Lucas, my last question for you, and I'm really interested to hear the answer because you've kind of grown over a very strange period where we've been through pandemics and we've been through TikTok and we've been through changes on Instagram. If you woke up tomorrow and you had to start your account from scratch, what's one piece of advice that you've given in the past that you'd be following?
Absolutely. What I always go back to, and if I think back, like if I had to start over, or even when I think about, because I actually get bored of my account, so I try to start different accounts and whatnot, and completely different niches and industries just for fun or like a refreshing break. I always say start by teaching what you know, right? Which is kind of like full circle to what I began with. But when I first started on Instagram, as I was learning how to use Instagram, I had like a more casual, like fun TikTok presence that I would share like fun little educational videos. A bunch of like students in my school followed me, and then it actually got quite a bit of traction during COVID. But I ended up like abandoning the account because it was different from my current brand. But during that time when TikTok was pretty brand new to everybody, I had a decent sized account with regular content creation going on there. So I looked at it and I said, I don't actually know Instagram very well. I like the platform. Instagram is my favorite business platform out there. I want to be on Instagram, but like I don't have much knowledge or authority to kind of be speaking about how to grow on Instagram. So I spoke about how I was growing on TikTok, right? And I looked for those overlaps. So I started off with, if people were to scroll, I don't know if they're all like archived or not, but if people were to scroll really far down, like 750 posts away, it's a lot of like TikTok tips, like how to do this on TikTok, how to do that on TikTok. A lot of the same stuff I'm doing on Instagram now, and I was actually able to repurpose a lot of it when Reels came around because there's a lot of the same parallels. But I started with what I knew, and I started with what I was confident in speaking about. And just like I said, with like going live or speaking on stories, start with what you're confident in speaking about and what you can teach people. I made content around that, and while I was doing it, I was growing an Instagram account and learning how to grow on Instagram. And then I transitioned from there into, you know what, I want to go all in. I transitioned to like just general social media, and then I said, I really want to do Instagram. Instagram is where things are at for me. So then I kept that same account and switched it over to just Instagram when I felt comfortable and confident enough in what I knew. So it really starts with, create content around what you're learning, but start with something you already know about. I think a lot of people try to like pick a niche they think is important or think is going to be popular, and then they're just kind of like repeating what other people are saying because they don't necessarily have the knowledge and experience in that field themselves yet.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I really love that advice. And I think it is so important because, you kind of start these accounts with the hopes of growing that following and sharing these tips. And you're right. I think a lot of people kind of start where they think they should be going from, or kind of trying to compete with people who have been on the platforms for a long time. Whereas they forget that there are people like them who are new. And so they still need to learn the basics just as you are. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, like, and like you said, I like that point about how sometimes people might actually get more value from someone who is just a few steps ahead of where they are beginning, as opposed to someone who has been doing it for years and is quite a few steps ahead, right? Like, obviously, definitely. I like to keep my content like very practical for all levels, but someone who is just recently grown might be more valuable to someone who is just starting.
It's like joining a LinkedIn learning course on Photoshop from like an intermediate level, and you've just signed up for Creative Cloud. Like, you're just not going to pick up any of that information. Yeah. Speaking from experience. So, well, before we wrap things up, I want to introduce you to our rapid recommendations segment, where we find out what our guests have been loving and what they simply can't live without. So I have 3 more questions for you if you're ready.
Yep.
All right, Lucas, I want to know, what's one app or tool that you simply couldn't work without?
So especially with the shift to video, and personally finding making reels directly in Instagram could be a little bit buggy still sometimes. I love to use the app InShot, InShot. It's a very common one. I'm sure many people already know about it, but in terms of a mobile video editor that's like right on my phone, I haven't found anything that is better and more easy to use. So I love that one for my reels, and I'm using it for tons of different video content right now.
I will back you up on that one. I love InShot too. Who is one brand or persona that you think is getting social right at the moment?
I really like Later Media. So they're a big scheduling platform, tons just social media management in general, but their Instagram presence is awesome. Like, they have, they're my go-to for like meme inspiration and like Instagram Reels trends. So they post like a bunch of my favorite kind of Instagram meme, which is like you take a trending meme, but then they use like they make them, I think, in Instagram stories, and use like the Instagram stories text. So it looks like so at home on my Instagram feed. It's all the same font and same text. And they also share tons of like Reels trends. So I think they're doing a great job just keeping it, making it feel very at home on Instagram.
Amazing. And finally, what is one valuable resource, event, or group that you think our listeners should know about?
A website I check all the time is socialmediatoday.com. It's just like a blog that like combs the internet, and probably Twitter for the most part is where I think they get most of their stuff. But they just kind of compile all the latest like updates and news articles. Some of it's like sponsored content, but most of it is just like, this Instagram developer did like a Q&A on, or like an Ask Me Anything on Twitter, and here's what they said. Like, so they kind of really just find a lot of like the deeper, more hidden insights, I find, about what's coming in social media. It's all platforms they cover. So that's like one of my bookmarked tabs I always have when I fire up my computer, just so I can see what's new. And sometimes I get a lot of traction because I'll like find it there and I'll go like report on it and like investigate it myself and give a little bit of extra insights. And it's always, people are always like how do you know so quickly? So that's my favorite tool for that, for social media news and updates.
Yes, I've literally got a bookmark on my computer as well. I feel like it is the perfect sort of tool for every sort of person in the social space. So I will also back you up on that recommendation too. Well, that's all we've got time for today. If you enjoyed this week's episode, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you'd like to leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app, we wouldn't mind that either. We've been Giraffe Social Media. You've been amazing. We'll see you next time.